There we go. How's it going, everyone? Namaste, my friends. Hope everyone is doing well today. I'm sitting back with the camera is sitting precariously on the kid's wagon, so it's a little bit weird. And even stranger yet, the wagon's sitting up so the inside is facing me. So as I speak now, it's reflecting back to me, as if I'm in an echo chamber. It makes me tempted to start over with a different position, but I'll continue on my way here. Because, hey, be spontaneous or pay the consequences of getting bored and turning off the camera, and I don't end up making a video at all. I heard something earlier when I was listening to these little philosophy clips, and they were from different, they've basically gotten like Nietzsche and Heidegger and all these, even back to Socrates, and Plato, Aristotle. Little segments basically explaining the different basis for some of their beliefs and their philosophies, and we hear of many of these people like Nietzsche is considered kind of a defeatist, or there are various terms to describe these people. Nihilism is a term that comes up quite often. Nihilism is basically just saying nothing means anything, it doesn't matter. And the nihilist attitude is one that costs people happiness. And this is what I'm here to talk about, is happiness. However, I'm starting out with the disclaimer that I'm not arrogant enough to think that I can tell you how to be happy, nor am I here to say this is the only path to happiness. It's more of a matter of a general philosophy of mine that happiness stems from being aware. When we talk about philosophy, we often think about, guys with white beards thinking about the meaning of life. And of course that's part of it. But part of philosophy is rationality and reason, logic. Logic is a huge part of it. And the philosophy of logic is that if you're logical in your dealings and in your way of life, and you think about things critically, it'll cause you far less anguish in the long run than if you fool yourself or delude yourself into thinking something. A person can pretend they're happy and pretend what they believe is true. Yet if they spend most of their time defending it against others who disbelieve it, it shows a weakness, a chink in the armor, that the person's belief system either causes them to argue because they're not quite sure if they're right, or because they think they're so right, because someone told them that they were right, or they're convinced in their hearts. And so it's very difficult to discuss with people. There's that's this term I heard earlier, Enlightened pessimism, which is being realistic in the sense that the world is not your oyster at all times, that you're going to have problems, that you're going to run into shortcomings and issues. You'll have health problems. We're stuck in these bodies. We're stuck with these minds. We're crippled by our own existence and our inability to move past some of the shortcomings of others and to see ourselves for just being flawed human beings. It's amazing existence. It's the absurdity in anguish, the absurdity of life. Absurdity of life is a common theme in many philosophies. Stepping back and looking at yourself and looking at the world, you should be able to delve into madness. Now, I meet a lot of people who really think they're on top of their game, people who really think they have it figured out. But I'm much happier to meet people who don't get it than those who do, because none of us really get it. I can sit here and give you my philosophy, and some people will tell me, man, you're totally deluded, you don't know what you're talking about. Other people will say, everything you say is true, I totally agree 100%, and neither of those people can I agree with. I refuse to just say, okay, you agree with me, that's good, because I'm right, because I'm not. I'm only right about what works in my life. Seeing the absurdity, though, is something I think that everybody can benefit from. Really, really see it. And one of those methods is, a good example I heard was, I can't remember which philosopher it was, but he was on a bus one day. I think it was in the early 1900s. He said he got onto a bus one day and he was walking and he stopped and he looked down at one of the seats. And he became immersed in the idea of seat. He considered it, the word seat. what the thing seat implies, something for human bodies to sit on while we're being transported. That, of course, in itself is not a great, big wonder. We've all looked at things and thought about that. Kind of like when you analyze a word and pick it apart and it doesn't sound the same anymore. You say the same word over and over and it sounds weird or different. Now try that and apply that to daily life. Look at a bicycle and consider what it really is. Look at your camera. Look at a wagon. Anything around you. And consider not what you've been told it is, what you've been programmed yourself to tell you it is, or the accepted, filed away notion of what it is. But really, what is it? How does it serve the purpose? And once you extend that into nature, this is when you see what people would call God. You ask, what purpose does that bug have? And you start to see the interconnectedness of all things. Something as simple as the ducks landing in my pond yesterday and looking at their feathers. And I was talking with my wife and saying, look at those beautiful, beautiful creatures. I think random mutation is a phenomenal thing, but doesn't explain exactly some of the more complex notions. I heard a term earlier that said culture should replace scripture. And I actually agree with that philosophy. It was talking about how somebody, I think it might have been Nietzsche, but he was disgusted by Christianity, disgusted by religion in general. But the more he delved into it, the more he realized that religion is it's a creation by man for man, based on principles that are universal, like laws, such as don't cheat, don't fool people, don't lie, all these different things. Hold on, I gotta let my dog out. Come on, dude. Okay. Watch me. Nope, he's not done yet. Oh, he's not done yet, he says. There was another theory I heard about, somebody was saying that capitalism is a self-imprisonment. It's voluntary imprisonment. And many people attack the capitalist system or the system in place, and this will be my final kind of play when we talk about happiness and philosophy. Being and existing and seeing the truth and the absurdity in life, we have to realize that the economic factors we have in play are due to not just greed and not just corruption, not just these few people who have set this giant conspiracy into motion. It's a creation that has extended thousands of years back, as soon as commerce began. The minute we were farming, the minute we had things to trade, where we weren't just gathering what we were eating, where people would build houses for other people and expect payment, and promissory notes became useful. When we talk about how cash money in today's society is basically worthless paper, it is. But what it represents is the same as wampum, from the Native Americans. When people would trade shells or anything else, things that weren't always necessarily valuable in themselves, but it was the principle behind it and honesty that had to come with it. And people would shill and steal off coins, and it's always been that way. So seeing the absurdity requires seeing the absurdity that is just what is, realizing that people are the way they are for no particular reason, that there's not always a way to cater to all the people, that no matter what kind of laws, principles, and values you put into society, even over many generations, it doesn't mean that people are going to take those values on. To put it bluntly, if you had a room, or you should say you had a village with 100 people, and there were no laws, no rules, no regulations, and all the people were raised with the same values. Get out of here, B. And they were all told not to steal, not to lie, not to cheat. They had no external input from, the internet, no corruption from other people. I don't think that would matter in the least. Even if everyone was raised with the same values, one kid would wonder what it's like to have more than the others. And that's a really important thing, I think, that we have to remember. One kid will always want to have more than the others because he wants to see what it's like. And in today's society, we believe that the reason why people want more is because they believe that having more gives them more value, and people look at them with more respect. But it's not always like that. Some people just want to gain more, and they hide. They don't talk about it, They just want to be able to spend more money and have more luxuries and more fun at the cost of other people. And this is important to remember in an economic system. Those who have more, it always comes at the cost of those who have less. However, a person who's rich, let's just say, just for the fact of them being rich doesn't mean that other people are necessarily poor. If a rich person with moves in and builds a large mansion, they can employ a lot of people to build that mansion, to continue, upkeep on the mansion, groundskeepers and cleaners and whatnot, and all of that small potatoes. But the person's bringing money in and he's using it, as opposed to a person who just keeps all his money in an account. Now, when we talk about account money, that's money that's taken out of the system and we end up producing more money. I don't want to get into a money discussion on this, but what I wanted to do was make the point that capitalism can control you. It doesn't matter. Communism can control you. You have different sides fighting as if there's one proper way to live, capitalism or communism. And I'll tell you something, even in a communist dictatorship, there's capitalism going on. It's just only with the higher ups and the people who have the means to make it happen. You don't think communism means that everybody has the same? Of course not, because there's still large luxurious palaces. It just divides it further. With capitalism, it opens up and exposes that division, and it makes it even harder, where the proletariats, you've got slaves and masters, but they're all wearing the same clothes, and it's hard to know who's billionaire and who's on the street. And that makes people feel uneasy. They feel inadequate because they're not producing as much as their fellow man. We get things like Facebook, where people constantly post how great their life is or how bad their life is. And it's all for attention, one way or another. Just like when I talk about certain subjects and make videos, I like to get it out there and I ask myself and inquire, why do I do this? I have a philosophy of why I do videos. And I laugh at myself, the absurdity of me doing videos. Oh, I don't do it for recognition, of course not. I don't want subscribers, but at the same time, if I wasn't talking to anybody, would I still do it? I don't know. I think back to when I started my channel, and I guess that's kind of how it was. I never really intended to get many subscribers. But that little bit of wanting to desire to share with people and have people understand what you're talking about, that grows as you meet more people that understand where you're coming from. The trick is to not let it fool you into thinking that everything you know is right or everything you think is right. To put it simply, if tomorrow it could be proven that Christianity was correct, then I wouldn't turn it down merely because I'm too stubborn. If tomorrow I found out that I was really a conservative, had conservative values, I would, like I said, I guess the simplest way to say it would be like if Trump had better values, if he was a good person and he talked to people with respect, kindness, humility, I'd probably vote for him in a heartbeat. It's the fact that he doesn't talk to people or have respect. It has nothing to do with him being rich or the fact that he's, doesn't play by the rules. I love that about him. It's just that I see something else that's needed, and that's my opinion. So rather than go around screaming and saying, you're an idiot, it's nicer to get opinions from people, but it's hard not to sometimes say, you're just an idiot because of what you think. And I try not to do that, but I do it sometimes. And I apologize if I've offended anybody, by doing that, because I realize that each one of us has our own path to take. Some of the most wonderful conversations I've had were from what you might call a good old boy, from like the Ozarks. I met some people who had just made it out of the cut, so to speak, and smart as hell, super intelligent people, no book smarts, no schooling, couldn't spell for a damn, doesn't matter. People are people. We don't divide ourselves among lines of, rich and poor. It's like when the city people insult the country people and vice versa. It doesn't serve anything because we're all struggling for the same truth. The truth of self. To acknowledge. Cogito Ergo Sum. I think, therefore I am. And that was the fruit of René Descartes, and his work trying to find out what can he prove. He says, when I'm sitting here in this chair, when I'm making this video right now to you, how do I know that I'm not dreaming? I can't know that. So how do I know if this is real? I can't. And this is where people use that philosophy to say nothing is real, nothing exists, therefore what does it matter? And that leads to nihilism. It makes no sense to me. You have to create your own reality, your own value in life. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to teach you how to live. A lot of these motivational speakers, I think they're great, but they always miss the mark because they start getting into it too deep, and they start assuming, because they get a lot of positive feedback, they start to assume that their path is the correct path. This happens with religion, this happens with New Age spiritual teachings. People say, no, chakras are here and here, and this is the color they are, and this is what they do, and there's no arguing with it. Unfortunately, a lot of people want to be told what will make them happy, and it will never come through means of videos. It will never come through means of books or money or intelligence or any of that. It'll only come through practice. So learning to truly be happy means just that. Learning to find your niche, to find what makes you happy and what moves you. But that doesn't mean, you just have to remember to be constantly self-analyzing and make sure what you're doing isn't taking away from who you are. You're not compromising your values or integrity in order to make a buck or to get by. And I believe that we have the gut intuition, the gut feeling, the gut brain, which does a hell of a lot more than just give butterflies in our stomach. It truly tells us if we're on the right path. And many people will tell you, if you just follow your heart, it'll never steer you wrong. And I've honestly never met a person who has said, I followed my heart and it took me to the despair and death. It's always the people who say, I felt like I knew I should have done this or I should have done that. Why do we downgrade intuition? It's because science is the god of the modern era, and science requires that we have proof behind what we believe and be able to truly defend it and understand it. But it's not always that simple. And once you give up on trying to prove and defend what you already understand in your heart, then you can move on to bigger and better things, which is truly living. And then you can live in that wonder that we all desire. And you will suffer, but you will grow, and you will be happy. It's a little bit of everything. It's just a balance. I live my life with the same problems as everyone else. I've got health problems. I've got to get to the dentist and get my teeth fixed. I've got, all types of, inner turmoils that I consider and things about myself I'm trying to work on. But that doesn't mean that I can't cherish and revel in the things that I have worked on and try to share that with other people. Because in the same way that I've grown, others have grown in different ways. And by exchanging what's worked for us, we can better all of our lives. And hopefully in a few generations, we can find out that it's not us against them. That it's not us against the government, us against other countries, us against other races, or even us against money. It's us against ourselves at this point. That's my view.